ṣàṣẹ wọ́n ṣàṣẹ lọ́rùn mọ́jú wọ́n ṣàṣẹ àwọn tèmi ṣàṣẹ o wọ́n ṣàṣẹ láyé sójú kò ọ̀lẹ́sùn ọ̀lẹ́lágùn ọ̀lẹ́sùn kò mọ gúgù ọ̀lẹ́sùn ọ̀lẹ́wọ̀n ọ̀lẹ́sùn ọ̀lẹ́ọ̀kákú. Money no dey fall from heaven. So
I'll just tell him to speak first.
God no go come down from heaven. Better say living things.
Perfect.
I wanna be on top of things. I wanna be doing things. I wanna be controlling things. I wanna be enterprising. Yeah, kì í ṣàtìlò. Olè ló pọ̀ ọmọ jẹ́ kì í ṣàtìlò. Wáyà kì í ṣàtìlò. Money order kì í ṣàtìlò. Olè jẹ́ kọ́ máa ń bari kì í ṣàtìlò.
Sorry. There's a little bit.
I say human being. Ọjọ́ kú lọ́jọ́ sí ni. Today na my birthday, mo ṣiṣẹ́ mo rẹ̀. Thank God it's Friday, àjàyè gbàgbé ọ̀ṣẹ́. When you see me coming, make way. As a living thing, I wanna be on top of things. I wanna be doing things. I wanna be controlling things. I wanna be enterprising. Yeah, kì í ṣàtìlò. Olè ló pọ̀ ọmọ jẹ́ kì í ṣàtìlò. Wáyà kébí ṣàtìlò. Mọ́nì ọ̀dà kébí ṣàtìlò. Olè jẹ́ kán máa ń bari kébí ṣàtìlò.
When you guys do speak close to the microphone so that everything will be much more audible to the audience.
Mr. White, Bernard,
Mr. Simon, can you hear me? Audible? Okay, great. I will. Mic check.
Investor PJ Femini, Mofa Femini, Junior White Femini, Asu Femini.
Can you hear me? Taiwo.
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, perfect. All good? All clear? All right. Appreciate it. Thank you, big man Joe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters from another mothers, and all those who traverse the daunting oceans of life. This is the Black Buccaneer Show. Today we have two brothers who are carving a name for themselves in the entrepreneurial world of educational and immigration consulting, while recently also venturing in the mining industry. I present to you Mr. Taiwo and Simon Akinremi. Welcome, guys. First and foremost, I want to thank you for making the time to come onto the show. Busy men like yourselves, it's not really easy to get a hold of you, especially since you have been gone for, I don't know what now, 6 months?
Yeah, about 6 months, yeah.
You set in Kampala, Uganda, was it?
Yeah.
And I think, Mr. Simon, you are set in...
I'm set in Lancaster in the UK now.
Okay.
So we're doing a few things there too, still on the entrepreneurship drive.
Okay. Nice. But look, since the audience is really curious right now, tell them, what is the brainchild of White Rock? What is it about?
Thank you very much, Remo. First, we want to commend you for the good job you're doing here.
Appreciate it.
You know, it's good to have a platform where we can inspire others to look beyond their comfort zone and see what they can do to impact on other people's lives.
Appreciate it, of course.
The footprints we're going to leave here when we're gone, it's always going to be about not just what we're able to do for ourselves, but how what we do affect others positively.
Absolutely.
And that's what you guys are doing here. Kudos.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We're talking about White Rock. We started almost 20 years ago now. And when we started, the focus is to support students from sub-Saharan Africa
Mm-hmm.
who want to get quality education in the West
Mm-hmm.
affordably. And after getting that education, because we have always believed that motherland is going to grow beyond what it currently is
Mm-hmm.
if we have the requisite skill sets and know-how.
Mm.
And that skill set and know-how, we don't have to rely on what we get back home alone, but we have to go to other countries. China is China, not because of the Chinese who grew up in China, but because of the Chinese who had gone out of Asia, got an education in the West and come back to apply that knowledge back home.
Absolutely.
Of course, we know that capital is always a challenge, and that's why when we started, we focused on destinations in Scandinavia, like Finland, like Sweden, where then education was international higher education was free. And over time, we've gone on to support lots of students to go to other countries where they can study affordably. As they study, they work. And then we've grown now to the point where we are registered in other countries. We are registered now in Sierra Leone, in Uganda. We have about 3 or 4 offices in Nigeria. We're also registered in
Well, you guys
Brazil.
go fast.
Yeah. And now we're registered also in the UK, in addition to, of course, being registered in Finland. The point is we want to be able to support all our students and clients in those countries, to support them to settle down, to support them to find job while they study, and to support them to make the most of their being away from home.
White Rock is not only based in Africa, correct?
No, it's not only based in Africa. We're also registered in Finland, and we're registered in Brazil now.
Okay, in South America.
Yeah, and also we are registered in the UK.
Yeah, like, where did the conception for this idea begin? Because it's a very, very niche idea. I don't really hear that much of people doing something as this, like educational consulting or immigration consulting services. So how did it come out? How did it come out to be 20 years ago?
Oh, good question. We also studied abroad ourselves. I studied in Eastern Europe.
Okay, where?
And, I studied in Russia precisely. So in addition to speaking my African Yoruba language, I also speak Russian.
Говори русский, да?
Gavarupa Ruski.
The man is a polyglot. You Niger guys are different. So the way you just go to places and absorb the culture.
We have to run when you hit the ground.
Is that a saying?
Yeah.
Confidence. Your confidence is undoubted, without a doubt. I respect that. To go and learn something as Russian, a Cyrillic language that has its own alphabets and it's just very, very, very different.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, in a different world.
Yeah, in a different world. Different culture, different weather condition. But then there's that African resilience. The 7 lives of an African child is real. So you
Paragon of wisdom, always dropping knowledge. I like that. If I'm correct, so the way you provide services, do you have sort of agents that do the scouting for you, or do people come to you in a way?
Is both ways. We have those we call sub-agents, and our present relationships with many of our partner institutions have come to be that when students from our target countries, apply to want to study in those institutions, they direct them to us to support them because they know our on-the-ground knowledge and support will be essential, not only to their getting the applications right from both the admission and visa side, but also to their successfully settling down, deal with cultural shocks and those kind of things. So we have a combination of our own regular promotions and of course sub-agents that we give remuneration to for getting us clients. And then like I mentioned, our partner institutions refer students from our countries to us to support their processes.
Is there a sort of like vetting process that a person has to go through before being worthy of White Rock representing them in those institutions? Like, because it's got to mean something, right? So how does that work? How does how do you pick the right customers per se?
Okay, that's a good question again, because we have to be careful so that we have there are different kinds of clients when it comes to going abroad. Generally, now our own target clients are those who are interested in study. Of course, while they study, they work, and upon completion of their studies in many countries, they have what they call post-graduation work permits. That means they can stay back and work. Now, we target those who meet academic requirements And where tuition is not free, as it is in many countries, those who are able to pay the school fees, pay the deposit, and who we think have the needed motivation to be able to work while they go to school and help with their expenses. And again, this requirement vary country to country. What the UK wants is not exactly what Canada wants, may not be exactly what the US is looking at, or what Australia is looking at, or what mainland Europe is looking at. So we look at not just the academic side of things. I mean, academic requirements. They finished high school. If they want to do masters, they have bachelor degrees. And then are they able to afford what country A that they want to go? Is asking for. So we look at all of this. We have a whole team that will do the filtering and then see where they can fit into, and then we make recommendations to them.
Why personally why White Rock stood out for me is because I see it as sort of as a gateway for many people who can attain education abroad without perhaps having, let's say, the right connections, because anyone can apply to White Rock, if I'm correct.
Very correct.
Exactly.
So you don't need to have some nepotism based connection to some local guy in the right office in the right time.
Exactly.
It's you can, if you have the hunger, if you have the drive, you go to White Rock, and that's why it stood out for me, and that's why I wanted to bring you guys on the show.
And for a company like ours, what we have seen is that there could be so many opportunities out there. There could be a lot of universities out there, a lot of study programs, so many opportunities. But matching the right applicant with the right destination is often a challenge. For instance, if you live in a place like Finland, you are considering high school education in North America, or you are considering the university education, or you are thinking of which country could provide you better opportunity. There could be so many options out there. But what White Rock does is we have a one-on-one with you. We listen to your goals and aspirations. What plans do you have? Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? What's your budget like? So we now match you with a destination that matches your budget, that matches your aspiration, and that really speaks to what you really intend to do. So, of course, we've got the internet that has plethora of information and data. So what White Rock does is just to streamline this process for you, really matching the right applicant with the right study destinations. And we've received so many positive feedback and results from this.
Where is the main destination that people sort of have a preferential attachment to? Like, which country are we speaking of when they apply? Just insider information on the company.
Well, like Taiwo mentioned, you see, Remo, we at every point in time that data changes. For example, in the late 2000s, like 2008, 9, 10, 11, when studies in Northern Europe, Finland, Sweden, Denmark was
started
free.
opening up.
Yes,
Yeah,
were
yeah.
free. You don't have to pay tuition.
Yeah.
They were very popular. And as they started charging fees, the shift is now towards destinations where there are not so much visa challenges for applicants coming from Africa. The UK comes top now, but then again, Canada is not doing any badly. So
is the UK really cheaper tuition fee wise compared to Nordic countries?
You may find that interesting because, for example, since countries in the Scandinavia started charging fees, and because they have a system where the government also fixes what they can charge. Okay, the government fixes what they can charge, and because of that, countries where there's more latitude as to schools having the right to determine what they can charge. You may be surprised that there are institutions in Canada charging cheaper than what you pay in Scandinavia now.
What? Nah.
Yes.
That's a bit far-fetched. Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm serious.
No. What?
Yeah, I'm serious. And then the fact that the visa process in the UK, for example, in addition to fees not being too different from what you have in Scandinavia, the visa process is more straightforward.
Okay.
This is July.
Yeah.
We're still taking applications for September in the UK.
Right now?
Yes, we're still taking for September. We're still taking for October.
Because in my understanding here, at least in this country, there's a deadline.
Yeah, there's a deadline.
You have
and
to
we've
submit
a
it.
deadline because you have to take entrance exams and all that. Yeah. So, and that's what we have in White Rock. We have a variety of options. So when a person is ready, because Africans usually, when we say we want to do something, we don't plan next year September now. It's when you have the weather to consider. That is when you have to give a lot of months to the planning process.
Of course.
Sometimes some people think, okay, I've been expecting some funds. Now I have it. I want to travel in October. I want to travel in January. So they don't want to be told to wait for so long. And in White Rock, we have that. Of course, if you say my plan is against next year, we also have options that we can consider for you. So we have variety of options. Like Taiwo said, we do one-on-one. We look at where you want to get to. We look at your goals and aspirations. We look at where you are academically. I tell you this interesting story where someone who came to us completed high school, but the result was not any good. And he wants to go to Europe. Now, we had a conversation with a school partner in the Netherlands. And then we told them the profile of the students. And then he told us there's what they call maturity tests. That if the student takes this maturity test, passes it, they can give admission to the student without a high school results to come and do a bachelor's program.
Okay, is this a unique thing that the Dutch government has implemented in their in their educational system, or is this available in many other countries?
Well, we have not seen it in many other countries because the standard thing is you show certificate of high school completion.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to bring out is that when we see the profile of a student, we speak directly to our partner institutions, tell them how we assess that student, and tell them where the student wants to get to. And on the basis of that, we're happy to say that we have been able to find something for everybody. Now, even to the point of finding a bachelor's program for someone in the Netherlands who does not have a high school certificate.
No, but that's 1 in a million chance.
I totally agree with you.
You gotta be really lucky.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And they've moved on. We have lots of wonderful testimonies. Not just on the process side, not just on the process side, but even upon completion of their program. And we're also happy to say that, apart from the success on that side, as an African business, in the countries where we operate, we're also happy to say that we have impacted well on our environment, we have impacted well on our team, we have also impacted well on what the future of learning and education is going to be for Africa into the 21st century and beyond.
But how do you guys, for example, this is where I'm even more curious, how do you deal with the, changing political climate? For example, at some point, tuition fees were not required from foreign students, but suddenly they are. So how do you adapt? What do you do? What's your go-to approach?
Good question. For us, we are very proactive. In many countries, before policies are set, you always have the conversations come to the table first. They say, people begin to talk like what you have in Finland now. You have a far-right government, being a major player in the government. And we've had that coming a while, and then we understand this is the direction this is likely to go.
So you had a sort of premonition?
Exactly. As all of us hear the news, we on the business side, we look at the effects that will have on business, on the direction of business. And so we are ready for where we go next. When from January next year now, master's degree students will not be able to bring their dependents to the UK. Now we're already preparing options.
Their families.
Yes, if they're going to do master's program. Now we're already preparing options as we finish September, October, where we are taking in the majority of our students who can still bring their dependents. We are planning immediately for where we're going to take them to next. For the options we are going to give them. So that doesn't come as a surprise, because as they come, we say, don't worry. Again, like I mentioned before, that's the 7th life of the African child. You can't box us up in one place. I think we would move. It's not possible. As long as there are opportunities opening up somewhere, and we know that the future of the continent is always going to be a function of how much we are intellectually. And so where the education is, where the opportunities are, our role as White Rock is to find a way and support people to go that way.
I like that. I like that drive.
Yeah, and because we have also observed that all countries don't play the game the same way, so to speak. Their policies differ. As you see some companies, some countries closing in, others are opening up as well. So as some countries are debating on restricting immigrants, their population, and tightening up, bringing independence, others are welcoming dependents across the board. So that's the reason why.
Because it makes the student's life also easier.
Exactly.
He will perform better in his given master's degree if he has his family right next to him to be moral support. He doesn't have to be concerned about them, how they're doing, calling them all the time back home. So
we don't love people politically. We don't really get involved in the political complexities. So all we just do is just to ensure that we have a country, a destination that is able and willing to onboard our applicants. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Well, but in the next 5 years per se? Where do you see your company going to? Where is it heading towards? Are you optimistic about the, this field, or do you see it as in a slightly, cynical way, like because of such shifting political climates and whatnot?
Like Taiwo said, because countries don't have the same policies at the same time. So while one place may appear to go south, there are many that are going north.
Mm.
We had a couple of meetings last week with some of our partners in Australia, and we are very happy to say that there's a lot of positives going there. While the UK is presently debating whether to allow students to stay back when they study, we are happy to say that Australia, for many courses, is even now increasing the number of years students can stay back.
This is really surprising to hear, because Australia does have that, stigma that they're very, very well. They have like stiff immigration requirements. That they're very closed in. I mean, they're really hard on anyone coming, well, from all across the oceans.
Yeah.
So this is very surprising to hear. That's why I'm a bit even more surprised when you told me that its tuition fees are slightly more taxing on the wallet in Canada than they are here now.
Yeah, because we, like Taiwo mentioned, the repertoire of information on the internet, we aggregate the ones that we know are within reach of the average, applicant from the African continent. And so we can say, now you don't have to go XYZ uni or college when you have ABC uni or college that can give you this program for this amount. Good career focused program, good quality, with opportunities to build, to plan your future when you complete it.
Yes. By the way, here's where I've also been left at an impasse, which is as you are constantly looking for these untapped great minds of young ones in our beloved continent, giving them an opportunity to go study abroad. How do you prevent, or in a way, do you see them going back home and settling down and striving towards a career? Because there's always this notion, at least in the media, that there's this brain drain occurring in Africa. Everyone moves abroad, settles abroad, hence why the continent is not growing. So what's the answer that we can come to when it comes to this?
Yeah, we'll leave some of those decisions to the applicants, to the students we're dealing with, because ultimately the applicants, the students, they have their goals and aspirations. Some students will want to stay back and acquire work experience upon completing their studies, while some want to return back to the motherland. So it all depends on what the goals of an individual is, and ultimately it also depends on what opportunities does the country, the host country, also present to the applicant. Some, for instance, allow you after studies, they give you some years to work behind, to get work experience before returning back. And while others even have pathway to PR and citizenship. So every applicant decide what kind of pathway they want to access.
And the truth of the matter is that if we look at it more broadly, Remo, you can't keep anybody back. So ultimately, when we see the Africa of our dream, as we hope, nobody's going to tell us where home is. You understand? Nobody's going to tell us. We have a lot of people who are checking their ancestry, tracing them back to Africa, and they're going to buy homes in Zambia, in Ghana, in the Gambia. You understand? Nobody's talking about brain drain that direction. They want to go home. So, and the interesting thing is, Africans who go abroad are going to pick for themselves the good, and we know that when it's time for them to go home, Africa is going to be better off for what they are going to bring on board. So let's look at this conversation, beyond the present. While what I said totally is it, they decide what they want, but let anybody not be too worried about how the present is. Of course, it's worrying, but I said not be too worried, because ultimately, when we see the Africa of our dream, all of us are going to, you don't need anybody to tell you it's better to live in a warm country than in a cold country. So even if you want to pick in a cold country, you pick it and you tell yourself, one day when the one place becomes where I think I want to stay, nobody's going to tell me.
And when we even look at the impact of Africans in diaspora on remittances back home, last year is about $500 billion, the remittances of Africans who are in diaspora back home. So we see the huge impact of that on the economy across the board. So we see them supporting their family members back home, investing back home across a wide range of sectors, employing people back home. So regardless of where they are, we can always see the positive impacts of the immigration experience.
What about within Africa? Have you faced any adversities breaking into specific countries' markets and whatnot? Have some countries been? The reason I'm asking is because I myself come from Eritrea, so I don't really see you guys, or I'm not that hopeful of you guys getting anything done out of that country. So how do you sort of like overcome that?
Yeah, actually, what we have seen is that across Africa, purchasing power differs. So, for instance, the GDP of different countries differs in Africa and purchasing power. So, a country like Sierra Leone, for instance, has a GDP of about $5 to $6 billion, compared to Nigeria that has
Per
over
annum.
$500 billion. So, which means that the purchasing power, what an average person is able to afford, where they are able to go and study, it also differs.
So in these countries,
So-
maybe the upper wealthy middle class are able
Exactly,
to afford it, and
exactly.
not generally
Yeah,
speaking.
but what
everyone
we
else.
do at White Truck is we have a plethora of options for everybody. So if you want to go to Cyprus, Turkey, we have
charge a bit
partnership in
less.
all of those places.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Tuition fees are more affordable. So in every African country we are, we really have something for them, regardless of what their income level is.
And we're beginning to do some regional expansion now. I mentioned earlier that we are now registered in Sierra Leone, in Uganda.
Yeah.
So, and we're doing a lot of that now because we understand too that as much as the internet is doing a good job with, helping people find useful information, especially when it comes to making decisions like where you want to study abroad and all that, we also do understand that being on ground will help, and so in the next couple of months and years, we hope to expand to more African countries. But even before we do that, we hope to have visual regional partners, and we're going to be rolling out in the next couple of weeks, months, some plans in that direction. So hopefully, who knows, we're going to expand more into East Africa, into Southern Africa, and we may be in this Eritrea one day.
Yeah.
Very, very hard for me to conceive it in my mind. But actually, since you mentioned the internet, one thing I've always thought is the internet it's a gateway. It's a gateway to knowledge. It's the modern day Library of Alexandria. It's where it's countless, just innumerable amount of information is available at the click of a button. So, what about remote learning? Has that been something that you guys have sort of thought about exploring and promoting it to Africans in Africa for them to learn remotely from institutions abroad?
Yes, what we've done is that, COVID brought a different reality. Let me start with that. COVID made us see that we can effectively function, remotely, visually, without being physically in any place. And so a lot of people now are able to study online, complete programs online. And then we have to key into that reality. So what we've done is that, for example, we had a partner in the UK that provides in about 2 years, in about 1.5 years, 3 years of UK university education with foundation. So when you finish that, you only have one more year to go and do, and then you have a BSc. So what we do when we talk to parents and students now is to say, instead of going to spend 4 years, where you have to spend living cost, you have to look at living cost, tuition fee, why not do this remotely from here and save yourself cost for 3 years, and then you go do one extra year and you have the bachelor's degree.
So the final year is
Yes, you just do the final year there.
Final exams.
Yes, because being on ground is still going to be very helpful.
Of course. The
So,
student experience.
the student experience, the cultural experience, and then sometimes some of the facilities the schools have to teach you some kind of courses,
The
to be
interpersonal
on ground.
engagements that you have with teachers and fellow pupils.
Exactly. But internet distance learning has allowed us to be able to reduce the number of years that you need to do that, and then save you considerable costs.
Well, which countries do you see right now back in Africa that are rising fast in terms of their youth becoming more educated and much more adept in their line of field? So which countries do you see right now growing in that department?
Well, I don't
from
have the data
your
off. I don't have the data
observation?
off my fingers now, but I would say that um, virtually every part of Africa is doing very well now. The young people are really taking the bull by the horn when it comes to going for knowledge, searching for opportunities, and trying to see how they use them. West Africa is not doing badly, and East Africa has always been a poster child for a safe place for young people to try things. And of course, we know traditionally Southern Africa has always been very good,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
countries also in Northern Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and others.
Even
They've
Egypt.
also, yes, they've been very
I was thinking
stable.
they're still recovering from the whole Arab Spring and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
but then you see young people in those places also beginning to consider getting more opportunities of education overseas. So in virtually all parts of Africa, you see young people are pushing for opportunities in other places.
Exactly. And White Chalk is tapping well into these, into these plans and into these expansion aspirations. And like Mr. Simon said, across the continent, young people are really, looking forward to living their countries and accessing opportunities abroad.
Mm.
And there is this popular stigma that oftentimes people go by road, as we've seen, sadly in recent news where a lot lost their lives on the sea. And that's also the reason why consulting company like ours, we are bringing this close to the doorstep of an average person on the continent, telling them we can consult for you, we can provide information that will enable you access information to go abroad to study, for you to also access a different pathway to immigration, because the only pathway is not to go through the asylum route or to go through illegally. So we could also assess your talent, your background, your educational qualification, and then match that with schools
Mm.
who really need to invite you over. So, and increasingly, now we're in 4 countries. We are taking it slow and steady, and we are very sure that we'll cover the continent.
And
since
like sorry,
no,
like
no,
I
no.
was said, I think this is a message we also have to sound very loudly, and we're happy that your platform would also be helpful in that regard.
Oh, of course,
We don't
anytime.
have to use the road to leave Africa. We don't have to go through the non-conventional means. Let me conservatively say it like that. It is possible for every person to access opportunities abroad within the limit of what your budget can carry.
Mm.
Now, and we also want to say that while there are many ways to go abroad, education is one way that really helps a lot.
Mm.
You know, you study, you work while you study, and you can legally do that. And then in many countries, when you graduate, you have opportunity to find job and stay back.
And this is what I love about like what you guys are doing, because you're providing, like, in my opinion, a better alternative to what a lot of people are taking. They take their chances across the desert. They pay smugglers to take them across the
Yeah,
sea,
Yeah.
and then they have to just maybe sleep rough for a couple of months
yeah,
and then try to
Yeah.
make do. But
yeah,
you guys are just giving a sense of hope.
yeah,
That's why I like it.
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
The I mentioned Uganda in the beginning,
Yeah.
and the reason that I'm really curious why you chose Uganda as a place to settle down in, because everyone keeps hearing about how Rwanda is growing fast.
Yeah.
It's becoming like practically it's not even a third world country anymore.
Yeah.
You know, like no one would have thought that a country that had a really aghast and horrendous chapter when it comes to the 90s suddenly has skyscrapers, and there's a financial district in Kigali, and everything is just smooth sailing. So why did you choose that specific corner of Africa?
Well, when we look at first of all the consumer markets, Uganda is about 45 million strong population,
Mm.
so that's a huge consumer market, and also the political stability as well too.
Mm.
It's a safe country. They haven't had any political crisis in recent memory. So, and there are a number of international companies that come into the country, and they are working in different space and different sectors. So they are working in
What are the key
consultancy.
key industries that these foreign companies are going for?
Yeah, yeah. The key industries are commodities, fast-moving consumer goods, and
Mhm.
metals and minerals. Metals, minerals, commodities, and FCMG.
Like some of our audience doesn't know where these specific minerals are going to. So if you can just give them an example why it's such a key player in global economy and also regional development in Africa.
It's a key player because of well, I don't have the statistics by hand, but
You mentioned
let me
germanium is
s-
used for a specific thing, for example.
yes. But
In our last
yeah,
conversation.
but we're on air, so it's good for us to be very conservative when we
Oh,
when we
you
give
want
some
to keep your
information.
cards a bit closer to your
Yeah,
chest. Okay,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah,
Not just
but
like a general sort of like,
general.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
of course, like you said,
mhm,
when it comes to the commodity market, it's a
yeah,
key country,
yeah,
and that's also the reason why it's possible for us to have lots of international students from Uganda who have gone on to Canada, to UK and to other countries in
Mm.
Europe,
Study
and we're
mining,
happy.
engineering,
Yeah.
chemistry.
Yes, and of course there are minerals to be mined there, and that's why those industries are doing well, and that's why they can generate good income for the country. And talking about Rwanda, it's a country that is really in our radar. You know, last year I would have been there, but something came up. But we do hope. There's a project we are planning, and Rwanda is at the core of what we want to do. And we may not want to let that out of the bag yet, but just to confirm through that.
Okay, keep on the watch, people. Keep on the watch.
Just to tell you that yes, we're happy with what is going on in Rwanda, and we can't wait to be a part of that very serious and mind blowing and very inspiring transformation of what is possible for an African country to become with the right leadership, and support from the citizenry. And we know that the story is not going to end in Rwanda. The rest of Africa is also looking up. The only thing we can do is to be optimistic. Optimism brought Rwanda. Optimism has brought other countries in Africa, and that same optimism.
If you would have told that to a guy in the 1990s, he would not
Nobody would have
believe you. That's the
believed.
thing,
Correct.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
So if
crazy.
Rwanda can happen, then many more countries can happen, and they will happen.
Okay, so you mentioned two key ingredients at least for such opportunities to be harnessed. So the right leadership and the support of the citizenry. What other factors is needed for a country to be appealing for foreign investors to come and bolster that economy? So what other things would you say are required?
yeah. I think with the right leadership, there are also other things that comes under that umbrella because a right leader would be adept on and be conscious of infrastructure because the truth is that the foreign investors they are not really coming to do Africa any good or any continent any good. They are
They're
coming to
coming
make
there for
profit.
their own interest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they've got stakeholders who want to multiply their funds, so they are coming there for profit. So increasingly, what the leadership should do in Africa, I think, is to invest more into infrastructure, road infrastructure, power infrastructure, telecom infrastructure, because when when you can do business at lower cost, we know what this mean for the profit downstream. So you can earn more. So when Africa continues to invest in infrastructure, makes it work on security, makes it easier and make the operational environment more friendlier to investors, then we'll see the result across board.
So security needs to
Yeah.
be at the forefront of the promotional market. So you have to show to people that hey, this is a good place to come and do business. Everything is chill, relax. Like everything will be taken care of. Okay. Yeah.
Like the business that we do, for instance, when the financial infrastructure in a country is advanced, then it's easier for parents to send tuition fees abroad to their students, to their to schools. It's also easier for us to handle a lot of finance related issues. So, as an example.
Since I at least from my personal interaction with you, I know you are deep into the crypto world. How would you say crypto is playing its role in Africa?
Of course, there are so many disruptions now in many sectors, and the financial sector is one. And we're happy that a lot of young people in Africa are not just crypto enthusiasts, but they're active players in that space. and we can say that he's kept them busy,
Mm.
and not just busy. I find something interesting. Some of the crypto platforms are employing Africans in Cyprus, for example, South Cyprus, and we also see that back in Africa, a lot of
The Greek administered, at least the
yeah,
Greek
the
speaking
side,
one, right?
correct,
Yeah.
that one,
Mm.
and some of those exchanges, I engage in them, and that's a confirmation of they are seeing them as not just understanding what they are doing with the thing, but as persons who can be trusted, to work with them. And aside that, it's come as a very good alternative ways of moving funds around. Of course,
Exactly,
different countries
transactions.
have their regulations as to what is possible and what is not possible. But we have found it very, very useful, not just the knowledge of it, but also the fact that it has made it easier for Africans to be able to move funds around safely and not spending so much.
Yeah,
Of course,
because the fees is what usually
yes, is what
hampers.
usually, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And a lot of young Africans have gone beyond just being acquiring crypto assets. They are also building their own project as well too.
That's what that was
Yeah.
going to be my next question.
Exactly, they are building crypto projects across different space. They've used the blockchain to build educational projects.
Yeah.
They've used that to build exchange projects, and this has really taken off really, really well. When you go to a number of crypto exchange platforms, quite a huge significant part of the crypto coins they are built by young Africans.
Mm.
So they have harnessed these opportunities, and it works seamlessly across borders. It doesn't have any political consideration, so it's a lot easier for someone to acquire their assets in Japan, in North America, in Europe, and then the owner of the project is somewhere in West Africa or a small country in East Africa. So they are able to really attract a wider market. So with this opportunity,
In the next year or so, what are some key things to be on the lookout for when it comes to countries in Africa that are developing fast and unique sectors in their specific economies? What would you say are some things to be on the lookout for?
well, across the continent, we see that e-commerce is really doing very, very well. And then, for instance, in a country like Uganda, people can order bikes or motorcycles on their phone. So, and it comes like in 5 minutes. Even in Nigeria, we also have a similar idea called the Gokada. So I think
What's Gokada?
Gokada. It's a mobile app that enables you to order motorcycles or ride.
Because there are
on
some
the platform,
restrictions with the government, but but the one in Uganda is working well.
It's working
the one
well.
in Nigeria, well,
So the government is much more business friendly in Uganda, would you say? Or?
well, not to compare the government, there are different dynamics that determine it worked at the time in Nigeria very well, but then security became an issue. And because of these security considerations, I think the government had to put in some restrictions. But we hope let's see how it goes. But then it's also e-commerce is a big one in Nigeria. Flutterwave is Nigeria, and they've done so well in that space. And we have so many software developers coming out of Nigeria now, and that is one sector that we know will pick up. And even apart from that, power infrastructure, there's a new policy in Nigeria now where states and individual companies can play the power space and the power sector now better than what they used to do before. And then the new government has come up with a few policies that we hope would help take the economy to the right direction. You can only be hopeful, but there are things now that are looking up, and that also brings to the discussion to courses that students want to think about doing. There are some, as we all know, AI is taking over everything now.
Yeah.
So in advising people what course to look for, we say, is it possible for you to focus on subjects areas that AI may not be able to impact? Like areas that require some kind of complex thinking, some critical thinking at individual level. Healthcare, core healthcare,
social services.
You understand?
Core
healthcare. Then strong IT. AI will always need AI engineers and all that. There will always be ethical players.
You're gonna be much more competitive as well, right?
So you always need those, IT engineers in that space. So looking at what courses would advise, paying attention to what is happening in Africa, with respect to some of the sectors we mentioned, and the ones that will be, will be able to withstand the challenges that the incursion of AI into our everyday life, is causing right now.
But e-commerce is really one sector to look forward to. I think because Africa is a youthful continent.
Very. We have a huge young population.
Exactly, 75% of the population are under the age of 25 years, and increasingly they have tapped into this mobile revolution. So everyone is connected, and people are ordering practically, the vast majority of things online. They are doing grocery shopping online. People are buying data online. So a whole lot of disruption are going to come in e-commerce. So I think that is really something that's increasing the number of investors to be considering.
I'm actually glad to hear that broadband internet connection is becoming much more accessible to people in wherever they may be in any given country. So that's nice. Because, as you know, at least my home, my country, is not really catching up, and that's what sort of like feels like it's a bit of a weigh down on my heart, because I see our neighbor, our brothers in Ethiopia, everything is just skyrocketing really well, So it's
don't give up hope.
Yeah. What we are saying about politics is things don't remain the same.
Correct.
Yeah, for too long. Yeah, things changes. There's always transformation.
Yeah.
So, whichever way is going to come, but usually, eventually, we
it
see
might be a
that
sudden paradigm shift.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
So,
yes.
yeah.
If you've got any message for our audience, whether they might be listeners in the continent or in the diaspora, anything to give them a key little spark of inspiration, because you guys are, in my opinion, one of the most innovative people who found something lacking in a specific market and you went for it by the throat. So if you've got anything, sort of your little secrets to success, if that's not too much of a cliche.
Well, for one thing, let's not give up hope. You can take everything from anyone, but you can't take hope from someone who refuses to give it up. So I'm not just talking about not giving up hope wherever we may be in diaspora, but let's not give up hope on home. So let's not give up hope. Let's be optimistic, and then let's encourage people to actively and intellectually play in what is going to happen in the next century. So let's not be backbenchers. Let's take the bull by the horn. Let's be interested in core healthcare. Let's be interested in the IT. Let's be interested in subject areas that will define what the future of our daily living is going to be like. And let's not stop pushing until we get what we want and still push again. We know that to make a difference wherever we may be in the diaspora, you need to be extra. The opportunities are not going to come on anybody's table. There's something on Taiwo status that I remember every time. I think success is not served
A la carte.
You and your poignant quotes, man. I know.
You have to grab it. And there's also something he always say that he said, we didn't come this far to come this far.
Exactly.
We have come to the diaspora for many of us, but let's not forget that we didn't just come here to be here. We come here to make a difference, not just on ourselves, but on our folks back home. So let's be holistic about what that difference is going to be like.
There's no end to the horizon.
No, let's just keep pushing. Push the boundary. In wherever space we may be. Look at what you guys are doing here. This is amazing.
It's still in infancy. It's still a lot of work to do, but thank you.
Yes, and this is good. This is an indication, irrespective of where we find ourselves, we can create something out of nothing. A platform for people to hear the voice of Africans, of what we're doing. A platform for people to talk about what is possible. Everything starts with, let's begin to talk about the ideas, and then from talking about it, we can see where we take it to.
Yeah,
Appreciate
exactly.
them, man.
And once more, our website is whitetruckedu.com. It's our
Mark it
website.
up, people.
Yeah, whitetruckedu.com.
White Truck Edu.
Yeah, whitetruckedu.com. So if you're interested in short-term programs, long-term programs abroad, in North America, in Canada, across Europe, so we have you covered. So tell your folks back home We receive applications and documents from across the continent, even in Europe as well too. So we are a WhatsApp call away. So look up our website, contact us. There are a plethora of information there. Let's know how we can support you and help your aspirations abroad.
I really, really appreciate you guys coming over to the show.
Yeah.
The Black Buccaneers always really glad to host you. You just hit me up anytime you have something new you want to bring to the audience. You know I'm always one call away. So,
Yeah.
and everyone, thank you for tuning in. We're still, working piece by piece. Just give us time. We'll get there. Please don't doubt us. Get on the show. Get on the ship. It's gonna be a wild ride on the tempestuous seas. Please, the Black Buccaneer Show. Tell everyone.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Make you whine to the sound of the guitar. Start to they sing loud. If you like it, the vibe they bring now. Yeah, I'm all logo, Lua Bona, mo jiggy jiggy. And if you want to see me, all I'm a niggy niggy. I know say me, I take keep, I'm really, really. But people know say money, they don't bury me. Waiting to see you come on. Don't finish you, come on. Something they miss you, come on. I suspect you, champion, no be easy, you come on. Waiting to see you, come on. I no believe you, come on. Come out for your feelings, you come on. Gently sit down, make you no come tell me shit now. Bad energy, power, go change them to another.